This is the story of gold, a Michael Jordan basketball, and a bunch of retro Power Rangers toys. My name's Daniel. I'm sitting outside here. It's a nice March day down here in Georgia. Pretty warm today, spring-like day. So I'm going to sit outside and do this video. Basically, this one's going to be about a unit that I got. Pro football players unit. Turned out to be pretty good. Alright, kind of start from the beginning. I bought this unit online. I ended up winning it for $1,700 and some change. After the buyer's premium, we were looking at right about $1,900 on this unit. It was a 10 by 30, so a really big unit. First, I wasn't even paying attention to this unit. There was another unit at the same location online. It was a 10 by 10, and it was several $1,000s when I first started looking at it, because it had, in the front of the unit, it had like a football in a case. You saw some baseball bats lined up in cases, you know, like they would be autographed, and a couple Power Rangers toys, and then there were boxes in the front, that kind of stuff looks like it probably would have been in, and then there was some furniture in the back. But it was a 10 by 10, so not a huge unit, so half of it was furniture, half of it was boxes. But people were going crazy over this unit. And I clicked on another unit at the same location. It was a 10 by 30, and it didn't look too great at first, just kind of stuff scattered around. But when you started looking close, I saw a basketball on the edge of one of the pictures that was in a case. And then right in the front, I saw a single, on top of a box and some stuff, there was an X-Men action figure, like still in the package. Same location, and those two items, plus there was a box. I don't remember what it said on it, but it was, you know, distinct, not like a U-Haul box or a standard box like that, you know, Home Depot. It was a box you would get from a specific business, you know, that they had extra boxes. I can't remember what it is now, but I saw one of those boxes in the back of the 10 by 30 that was in the smaller 10 by 10 unit. So I knew that this was the same people's, you know, same owner's unit. So I was like, okay, there's a good chance that there's going to be collectible type stuff in there. And at the time, this unit was under $1,000. So ended up, you know, it got time, you know, for that to end. It was counting down, and I was going to focus on that unit. I ended up winning the 10 by 30 for, it was just over $1,700 after buyer's premium, right at $1,900. The small 10 by 10, it went for $4,500. So after buyer's premium, they were going to be right at $5,000. So I got a 10 by 30 for $1,900, and they get a 10 by 10 for $5,000. So 3 times the amount of stuff for less than half of the price. So basically, you know, drove down there, and once we get into the unit, you know, see the X-Men figure in the front, start looking around. It's a lot of household stuff. There's tons of containers, you know, household stuff in the back. There's furniture. You couldn't really see none of the furniture at first until we, you know, started digging it out. Start loading some boxes, and the basketball that was sitting, that you could barely see in the picture, it was a Shaquille O'Neal autographed basketball. And so then when we start loading, we get another basketball. It was a box just the size of a basketball. It was a cardboard box, and I was like, this feels like a basketball. So I open it up, and it was a Chris Webber autographed basketball. And I'm joking with the person that, you know, the person that's helping me load. I'm like, you know, saying something. I was like, yeah, they're all right, but, you know, I mean, they're not worth a fortune. You know, if the whole thing was full of Michael Jordan autographed basketballs. And literally 2 minutes after that, we're loading up, and I get a box, and it says MJ basketball. And I was like, you know, I was like, this is funny. So I opened up the box, and lo and behold, it's a Michael Jordan autographed basketball, which is pretty cool. Turns out it's really not worth a whole lot of money, because there's so many of them out there. You know, he's been autographing stuff since the 80s. So you've got like, 40 years now worth of him autographing stuff. There's just a lot of it out there. So unless it's something special like a game worn jersey or something along those lines, that they're not worth thousands of dollars. You're talking about a couple $100. So, but anyways, it was still cool, and keep loading stuff. And there was 2 containers full of Power Rangers toys. These were the original from 1994, I believe it was. Power Rangers toys, all still in the boxes, like the Megazord and a lot of the robots like that, and then a bunch of the action figures, not of the Power Rangers but of the monsters in the action figures. So I was happy about that, and we keep loading everything, and there was a box container, plastic tote with the lid. It was full of sports cards. We kind of glanced at that; they looked pretty and everything, so that happy about that, and we keep going through the unit and everything. We load up. There ends up being a lot of nice furniture in the unit in the back. So, I'm like, okay, this, it should definitely, you're always worried about, at a minimum, getting your money back. You don't want to lose money, but that's not really the goal. The goal is to, at a bare minimum, double. Double's still not really making much money after your expenses. You really got to be like tripling your initial purchase or more to really actually have a unit that's going to make you money. So we haul everything back, to our store, to the warehouse to sort through it, and it takes us a couple of days to sort through everything. Power Rangers toys, they ended up, it was 2 containers worth of Power Rangers toys. I ran them through my own auction, and they did pretty well. And then the box of sports cards, it was loaded down. There was Michael Jordan, there was Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, I mean, you name it. So and there were so many of them, they were all in plastic sleeves. So we just made lots, like 10 to 20 cards at a time, like put 20 Ken Griffey Jr. cards in there, 10 Michael Jordan cards in a lot, whatever the case was, and they were bringing anywhere from $5 for a lot for some of the lesser known to $50, $75, $100 a lot, and it was a whole container packed full. So it turned out pretty good. Those 3 containers, the Power Rangers toys and the sports cards, they ended up actually paying for the whole unit. So a 10 by 30 unit. 3 containers paid for the whole entire thing. So it turned out, ended up turning out very good. And that was just the beginning of the unit. We're going through it, and we're kind of seeing, I'm seeing like stuff from like Korea, a lot of Korean stuff, Korean decor and odds and ends. It's from, made in Korea, from Korea. And so I'm like, okay, it looks, this person might be from Korea or whatever. Turns out that, it was like 3 different people's stuff. The main person he turned out, once we started going through this stuff and seeing all the paperwork and everything, he was actually a professional football player. Played in the NFL for several different teams. We actually, because I started seeing, I was like, wait a minute, because I saw pictures of him, then I found a picture of, of a NFL football player, and I'm like, this guy looks a lot like it. So I start looking at him more, and I find a baby book for their baby, and in the book in the front it says, mommy's profession's daddy's profession, and daddy, and said my daddy's a professional football player, played college here, was drafted here, played for this team. I'm like, okay, so then I looked the name up, and he was a professional football player. Then ended up finding actually this really is a Dallas Cowboys photo album, like silver metal, cover on the photo album, really nice expensive photo album. The Dallas Cowboys logo on it. Open it up, and there's, the guy that, it was his, the guy from the pictures and everything, sitting in Jerry Jones' office, like a younger Jerry Jones from the 90s. The office was really nice and everything, but it's funny because it's from the 90s, so there's like there's a box TV, a Zenith box TV sitting in the office, and a VCR sitting there, in this, in Jerry Jones' office sitting there. But it was back in the 90s, and it was a younger Jerry Jones sitting there, they were sitting there, and the guy was at the desk. I guess they were signing a new contract or whatever the case was. So, he was an NFL player. Turned out he was married to a lady from Korea. So some of the Korean stuff was hers. And then some of the stuff was her mom's. Apparently, her mom was from Korea, and I don't know if she lived with them. It kind of almost appeared like she lived with them, or at least had some of her stuff in the unit. And then there was also, they had a kid, and she was, at least at the time they put the stuff in there, in her 20s, I guess, but she had gotten married. So it was some of her and her husband's stuff in there, the main guy and his wife, and then the mom. So there was, so it's 3 different families, stuff kind of mixed into the unit, I guess you could say, together. But turned out to be some very nice stuff. When it came to the furniture, there was a beautiful brown leather living room set with a brass button trim on the front. I ended up actually bringing that home. That's in my basement. Where we have a TV and stuff down there. It's in the basement right now. Um, Beautiful like canopy, king size bed. Um, there was another actually, lots of odds and end tables. Lots of small accent pieces and that kind of stuff. And then there was a lot of the Korean stuff that we ran through the auction. A lot of regular household stuff that we ran through the auction. And then there was one of those like one of the bedroom sets like from the 80s, maybe early 90s. The wood, kind of really out of date looking. The cannonball, what you call a cannonball bed. It's got the big balls on the top of the post on the bed. It was the bed, a nightstand, and the dresser with the mirror. It was wood set. I sold it for a couple $100, but nothing special. Really, it's out of date. Whoever got it was probably going to paint it. But in one of the dresser still had stuff in it. So you start looking in the dresser, mostly junk. People leave a lot of junk in the dresser: old socks, T-shirts, paper, receipts, stuff that they get out of their pockets and everything. But in the middle, like there was a cabinet in the middle of it, and then there was 3 little drawers there. And in one of the drawers, there was a box in there that had quite a bit of gold, like gold jewelry in it and everything. A couple, really, one of the pieces, necklace. At first, I didn't even think it was real because it wasn't marked. It didn't have any kind of stamp for it, compared to what the case was, and it was so big and heavy that normally something like that is fake. But I'm looking at it close, and it just kind of has that look. You can tell there's when you look at a gold, you can kind of start to tell the look and feel of it. So I'm like, well, this thing might be real. Test it, and it ends up, it's 14 karat, and then there's, all kinds of other gold jewelry in there. And like I said, I'd already paid for the whole unit with those 3 containers, the Power Rangers and the sports cards. So the jewelry was just, it was 100% profit at that point, and it was quite a bit. I'm not gonna say exactly how much, but it was, quite a bit of jewelry. If you look up how much, gold's going for just scrap value right now, anytime in the last really 5, 6, 7 years, then it doesn't take much gold to add up. And then there was also, with the gold, there was some silver, like sterling silver utensils and stuff from Korea, like serving utensils, some Chanel number 5, Vera Bradley perfume, and some other high-end perfume, like brandy perfume bottles in there, and some other odds and ends. But the main thing was the gold. And but so you had the Power Rangers toys, the sports cards, the gold, living room set. Took that home. That was just a bonus for me. Big beautiful bed. Lots of other odds and ends as far as furniture, accent items. I don't think there was anything. Oh, there was actually there wasn't a table in there, but there was some nice chairs. Okay, yeah, there wasn't a dining set. So the main furniture was the bedroom set that had the gold in it, the big king size canopy bed, and the living room set. But like I said, it turned out it was an NFL player. There was signs of even more good stuff that wasn't in there, like boxes and receipts and different things of stuff that they had, but the stuff didn't end up in there, like Tiffany and Company boxes. Even though I think there was actually a couple of sterling silver pieces from Tiffany and Company. And then the clothes, he had some, there were some really nice clothes in there. There was some really nice, looked like maybe this was his wife's mom. They'd get from her a lot of stuff from Saks and stuff. Like there was a Italian-made women's pantsuit that had a price tag of like $2,500 on it. I mean, it was just really ugly and odd. So we, couldn't get anywhere near that much. But just the amount of money that they would spend on some of things like that was kind of crazy. And, a lot of suits and a lot of nice dress codes. They were really out of date though, because a lot of it, was kind of that, kind of 90s style, or even like early 2000s. It was kind of in style, but not really quite, what's 100% in style right now. So turned out pretty good. Like I said, at first I was a little bit nervous, pay almost $2,000, and didn't really know for sure. I didn't really even know for sure how much the Power Ranger stuff was worth when I first got it. But like there was the Megazord in there. The one piece was selling on eBay for $300. I didn't quite get that much in my auction, but some of the other pieces I actually ended up getting more than eBay prices. So I got more than eBay prices for some, less than eBay prices for some. So it kind of averaged out, and I did about the same as I would have done on eBay, but I sold it in my own auction. We do have an online auction, and I didn't have to ship the items. I didn't have to worry about, being scammed, like happens on eBay and everything. So that turned out pretty good. Sports cards turned out, I probably could have made more on the sports cards sitting there piecing in, individually out, but I just made lots, and we sold sports cards in our auction for about 3 or 4 weeks straight, just tons and tons of them, and so that turned out pretty good. So you never know, and what you're gonna get, especially I'm here in Georgia, and sometimes buying units around the Atlanta area, and you've got everybody, you've got all kinds of people in Atlanta. They're filming, they're filming a lot of movies. Like all the Marvel movies are getting filmed here. Walking Dead, The Hunger Games was filmed here. You've got a lot of music people here. It's so really, when you're buying a unit here, you can get anything from a homeless person to a celebrity and everything in between. You just never know. I mean, that's really the case anywhere. You never know where something's going to pop up, because I've seen some really weird locations for units to pop up that ended up being a certain person's that you would have never have thought, like in a really, really, really rough neighborhood, and then the person it ended up being either that I got or somebody else got was really shocking, that they would even have their stuff stored in there. So you really never know. It doesn't really matter what neighborhood it's in. A good unit can pop up anywhere, and you can get bad units anywhere. I've gotten some really bad units with just everything in there was trashed in really nice neighborhoods, and I've gotten some great units in really bad neighborhoods. Alright, so if you want to hear more stories, and I'm going to be doing some actual live videos of going through storage units here, coming up here soon, and just covering, the resale business, my thrift store, my auction. If you're interested in that and following along as I start to add more videos, just like this video and hit the subscribe button, and I'd appreciate it. Thank you.